The
Here we go.
stream is live.
Yes, we are.
Hello.
All righty.
Back again.
And I did not win a trip to Superman's the Superman premiere,
Oh,
which you
did
could
you?
have won if you bought this Adventure Comics first appearance of Crypto. Not quite facsimile. They call it a facsimile, but
Right.
it came in a poly bag.
Okay.
And when you open it up, it says, "Sorry, you didn't win."
Thank you,
I don't
DC
know if I can
Comics.
really call that a facsimile without that first page there.
Yeah, what would have been there? It would be
Maybe
funny if
indeed
there was
says
a
Adventure
contest at
Comics
some point.
210 facsimile edition. But I don't know if that counts to me as a facsimile edition.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that counts. And you know what? What a way to start off a comic book with disappointment. Hey, hey, loser! You're not going to see the movie for free.
Yeah,
So
got
here's
an
some
Aquaman
comic
story in it.
Look at that.
Okay, we have Werewolf by Lunchtime calling us the real outsiders.
Hello.
Did you win a ticket for the Superman premiere, Werewolf?
And when does the how much time is there? Because if that book just came out this week, the movie is I think next month, isn't it? Okay, so there's some time. Now that I think about it. For some reason I thought it might be like next week's or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know.
And how many people how many tickets do you think they made?
I heard there were 2 winners. That's what someone said. I have no idea if that's true or not. Is it Golden Biscuit Sweepstakes? Win an opportunity to attend the world premiere of director James Gunn's Superman taking place in Los Angeles. Use the code BISCUIT at DCUniverseInfinite.com for a 30-day free trial to DC Universe's Infinite Monthly Ultra tier. Okay. Other terms apply. Not intended for children, so do not let your child read
comics.
Yeah, of course, comics will rot your children's brains. Comic Crack is here. Good evening, gang. Good evening, Comic Crack.
Like we joked a while back.
He's going on his week off.
Ah, okay. Very cool.
And Eric P says there's a whole controversy about that first page, as it apparently has a code for access to DC top tier digital for free.
That's what I just read. All you have to do is go to DCUniverseInfinite.com /join/biscuit and enter the code biscuit. I don't know why that's controversial. It's only for 30 days.
And Captain Infinity is here with the Chains of Time.
Chain. Is what's that big con? Is that this weekend? Is it Chris at that?
There is going on what is the name of the con? Yes, there is a con going on this weekend. There's quite a few cons actually going on kind of back to back, I was noticing.
Chris is at Heroes. There we go. Heroes Con in Charlotte. Yeah. Right. Eric P just put that down there.
Yeah, a lot of comics YouTubers are going to Heroes Con.
Yeah. In North Carolina. So that's where Chris is living, North Carolina. That should be an easy one for him then. But I don't know how close he is to it. So
Heroes Con, I hear, is kind of like people have said like the last true comic convention where it's about comics. Right. And then that if you're an artist, it's a really good con to go to because you could sell some of your work. And Chris has some amazing images that he shared recently before the con. That is really cool. That it's like he has a wonderful idea of taking the sketch covers and drawing not boxes, but the backing board art for action figures.
Yeah.
So he has an action figure. The backing board goes in, and he basically creates this piece of art. And I wanted to tell him that's a phenomenal idea that I would like to steal.
Yeah, there was he's got the sketch cover with, let's say, Superman in there. Then he's got it's some sort of like contain like a like a CGC case or something like that. It's a hard shell case, but it's got a spot for an action figure in the hard shell case. And it looked
Yes.
like were those Toy Biz action figures?
The one that I saw him have were the Toy Biz ones. So those are
Mhm.
5-inch toy figures. For what it looked like, because I definitely knew that the Silver Surfer that he had, without surfboard, by the way, but that's nitpicking, was definitely a Toy Biz figure.
Yeah, it looked cool though, because it was like, a comic in a bag, sort of in a hard bag with an action figure on the front too. So it
Yeah,
was
I
very
thought
cool. I thought
that
those were
was a
cool too.
real. Yeah, I agree. That's a really cool idea. So,
Yeah.
waiting to see how he does.
Yeah, Eric P was going to Heroes Con, but now he's not.
Right.
Yes, 62 Lefty Lose. It's supposed to have a golden ticket. Jared's did not have the golden ticket. He's
No
disappointed.
golden ticket for me.
I always wondered if anyone won those comic book prizes. Because over the years, I've seen plenty of them. There's the 7-Eleven one.
Win a
There's
10 bike.
10-speed bike.
Ruined
There's
a
been
lot of
other ones.
comic covers.
Yep. Get drawn into a comic for such and such. Create a character for your comic, which took
Well,
25 years before
you
that
know
one came out.
that
For
Mark
Tom King.
Bagley won one of the Marvel tryout book contests.
Mark Bagley was the winner for the Marvel tryout books. Yep.
That was the one in the 90s, right?
No, that was the original one. The 90s was with the Art T. Bear cover. The one from the 80s was the John Romita Sr. cover. And from what I understand, he won or he was the one of the few people that submitted stuff in that they were like, okay, we're picking this guy.
I think Mark Bagley still worked on New Universe books.
Oh, he worked on the New. Okay, so I didn't realize
that was still
back
80s.
that far. Okay,
yeah,
that makes sense.
Because I remember his first Spider-Man was the Evolutionary War annual, so that was 88.
That makes sense then.
Yeah, up till the 90s, Ski had the artwork in his office.
The Mark Bagley?
The Mark Bagley pages, yeah.
Ah.
They were, for some reason, under his big couch in the office.
Under the big couch.
Captain Infinity. His first comic convention was New York Comic Con in 1985.
Mine was Oakland, California, 1993.
I have no idea when my first Comic Con was. It was probably a local one. Because like I said, I never went into New York City as a kid. Like my friend Ed, his father took him into New York City when he was a kid to go to a couple of cons. I don't think my first New York City Comic Con was till I was out of college. But in college, there used to be the Ramapo Con near me, which was in a local high school. And they had a lot of guests because they could get all the guests who live in the New York City area.
Yeah.
So that was probably one of my first ones. It was one of those Ramapo cons.
I didn't even know cons existed until about a year before I worked for Marvel. Because it made the news that, this thing is happening, this event. The first time I ever saw what John Byrne looked like, because he was being interviewed. And it was like, oh, I didn't know these things existed. But by the next year, because it's a yearly event, I was working at Marvel. So it was like my first con experience was through Marvel. So for me, It was like that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I knew cons existed only because, and I've showed it here ages ago, I think it was. In one of the trades I made around the neighborhood as a kid, someone threw in the coverless program to, I think, the 1975 Phil Suling Con, autographed by Stan Lee.
Right.
And he was just like, "Here, I don't want this. You can have it." And so that's when I probably found out Comic Cons existed because I had the program to one of them.
I knew of Star Trek conventions,
Yeah.
but every time I saw ads for them, they were never in New York. I never
Creator
got to go
Con.
to those.
Was Creator Con the Star Trek one?
I
I
don't know
remember
because
seeing
I never went to them. The
neither
closest
I
one
remember
I
seeing
went
ads
to
for them.
closest one I went to was years later after I was working in comics. One was called Icon, which was like one of the oldest sci-fi convention cons, but it was like all inclusive sci-fi. And
I
it took
knew
place in a college.
I knew of the Phil Suling cons because of that program, and I think because I saw ads for them in magazines or comics and something. And Creator Con, which I think I was always disappointed wasn't a Comic Con. I mean, not that I was going there; I was just reading the ads about it. I think it was more of a Star Trek science fiction con, but I never went to one.
Eric King's
King
first
Con.
King Con in '84, Eastern Michigan University.
Ah,
Oh. We
Marvel.
we have that kind of a name here in New York called Kings Con, which is in Kings County, which is Brooklyn. So that name was like reused over again.
oh yeah. I
Yeah,
just
so
saw it somewhere else. I can't remember where. Oh well, maybe I'll remember.
speaking of DC Comics, I saw that they are now being distributed or going to be distributed by the new distributing company that's being created out of Canada. They were the
Ah,
people that was supposed to buy Diamond, but they
okay.
decided they weren't going to buy Diamond because they found something was a little too fishy. And so for a second they bought them and then all of a sudden no, they don't have them anymore. So I believe they end up getting the people who Diamond fired. The new owners fired a bunch of people. So this company ended up getting all the people. So DC has been signed up for them, but I don't know how they're getting into comic shops and don't know where the printing is being done.
Is it exclusive or not? Do you have you heard?
It
Or?
they I haven't heard exclusivity. All I
Right.
heard was that DC signed with them. Because I know DC is also over at Random House.
Okay.
So I don't know if they're hopefully they don't do exclusivities because that kind of
Yeah.
started the problems when they were doing exclusivities.
Right. There's also I was learning talking in my comic shop this week. Mike Dolce came in the same time as I did. I don't you know if you know him. I met him years ago during the Marvel Wizard Touch football games. I think he was a friend of Mike Reich, who was an assistant editor at Marvel. And Mike Dolce he's been doing some small press publishing for years now. The Sire is the book that I was buying from his. I think him last year, and I think he's got a. I think it's called Mike's Books or something like that. And he was talking to me about because he was one of he got distributed through Diamond, he's small press,
Right.
and he was saying there's a guy he knows. I don't remember the guy's name. Was starting up a distributor for small press.
Okay.
And he's only going to distribute once a month. And Mike was signing up with him, going, "We'll see what happens." So there is a small press distributor popping up
Okay. Yeah,
to try
I
and distribute
I've
stuff like Mike Dolce's books.
I met him a few times at cons, and I've done work for him and
Yeah.
with him on some projects here and there. So I do know of him. But yeah, it's good to hear that there's more distributors popping up. And I read today a couple of guys who were instrumental in creating Comixology is
Oh yeah.
working on a system. Their name is, let me just look them up because I did share.
I just
They
saw
have
that.
a waiting list so
Uh,
far, but at least two members of them are working on a Comixology like one called
yeah, a new digital platform.
yes, Nino Chiban. Cavern.com. I don't know if that's the right way to pronounce it, but it's there. They are focusing on both manga and traditional comics, and once Amazon bought Comixology, they went ahead and do what Amazon does is they take something great and destroy it. So, or they make it just incredibly hard to
They
work
make
on.
it worse.
They definitely make it worse. So, uh, it's nice to see that there is, you know, something new
Yeah.
happening. Although what's funny is that they're trying to give it a collector's mentality to it too, where you buy your books, you could also resell them to other
Ah,
collectors. So it's one of those things where you also have the possibility of downloading your books as a PDF. But if you download them, you no longer have them available to resell.
okay.
I guess
Interesting.
that's what's keeping people from like, oh, buying the book, downloading it, and just trying to resell
Right,
the
right. I don't
the
need
book
that
itself.
anymore. I've got
Yeah,
it as
Yeah.
a PDF.
exactly. So I posted what the name is on
Yep.
the side there. So, but it's and then of course it's just
Ichiban.
that same name.com, and you can sign up for their mailing list, and they even tell you what number you are. So I'm like number 4,000 and something. Um, but they already have publishers in alphabetical order: Dark Horse Comics, DC Comics, Distillery, Kodasha, Marvel Comics, Only Press, and Volt Comics are what they already have.
Hey, they got
Uh,
Marvel and DC. All the rest will follow.
yep. And Kodasha does most. Kodasha is through Random House, and they do
Right.
most, or they're one of the biggest distributors of manga. So
Okay.
they already have like the big houses. I wouldn't be surprised if they were just all the same files from Comixology and just
And
imported over.
talking to Mike got me thinking, what would it take to start a small press comic distribution service? Because you're probably just gonna use FedEx, UPS, US Mail, I imagine. You're not. It's not like you got trucks out there.
No.
No, I am aware that there were a few companies back in the day that were like they would only service wherever they can drive to. I
Right.
do know that there was one that like handled kind of like the upper East Coast, and they
Right.
had trucks, and they had a centralized warehouse somewhere, and then they drove to the comic book shops
Yep.
because you figured each state maybe had one to two shops in a major city, so there wasn't
Mhm.
that many shops, and they would be driving and stuff like that. I know when I worked in a comic book shop in the 90s, occasionally we had to drive up to where where the main headquarters for Wizard
Oh, oh
was
yeah, to pick up
to
your
get
book.
to pick up our books for some reason. I don't know
Right.
why they got the books, like why Diamond sent it to them, but they had the books first or whatever, and we had to drive up there once in a while just to get our books. That kind of became like a bit of a hub. So and I do know that there were some people that were kind of like they were the representative of the tri-state area, and they made sure the tri-state area comic shops got their books. And a lot of them started out that way, the smaller ones. I
Yeah.
don't remember
Let,
the name of the one that I that we dealt with, but they had like a little catalog, a little black and white trade paperback catalog for mostly indie books.
Ah.
And for some reason, the name Baloney keeps sticking in my head, but I don't remember what the connection to it was. But they were a small press outfit that had local drivers going to shop. So yes, now we do, we have FedEx and stuff like that that are quick, but I don't know if that's sustainable for small press because who pays
Yeah,
for that
that's what I'm wondering.
shipping, you
Because
know?
you're gonna need a if not a warehouse, some place to put the books.
Right.
Yes.
Lefty says the trick will be getting the list of what you publish. That's the easy part. As long as you have an online catalog, you can the shops will know what books to get. The Well, I really don't see a problem with having distribution being farmed out to a third party. If you have your own,
Because I don't think Diamond didn't even have its own trucks. They were using UPS.
Right. They were using UPS for what they were delivering. Like, so what they mostly was spending their money on, I would imagine, is the warehousing of them, of the items.
Which is why the judge declared them not a monopoly. Because they were not a distributor, they were a warehouser.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they got declared not a monopoly by a judge back when there was a lawsuit, when everything was exclusive to Diamond. They weren't a distributor. They didn't have anything to distribute with.
Right.
They had warehouses. But I got to figure, if you're setting up, I got to figure at least 3 people you would need, right? Working in an office, getting all the packages for once a month deliveries. I got to think you need at least 3 people.
Maybe 3 or 4. I mean, if you look at the Comic Tom 101, I think his channel is. So he has a comic book shop. I don't know how many. It's been a while since I watched his YouTube videos.
Right.
But he has kind of like a subscription service kind of going on out of his comic book shop, where he does his channel. He talks about stuff, very popular. He does top 10 stuff, talks about comic stuff and what have you. And that he had created a list where, once a month you get a package from him.
Right.
And, he shows the table. He has maybe 3 people working with him where they're physically just, stacking up the comics like I used to do for the at Marvel when I was making the
bundles.
The bundles, thank you. The bundles for everybody. You open up a box, and it was me and maybe 2 interns doing that, putting them together, and then just hand delivering them. But the only difference for what I did and what they're doing is they're sticking it into an envelope between some cardboard and sending it out. And everything else is done through the mail. So I don't know what kind of mail service they're using. So it's one of those things where you don't need that many people to begin with. I would say probably more than 3.
Yeah, I like 3 would be minimum, I would think.
I think 3 would be minimum.
Because it's only going to be once a month, so.
Right.
And so you're going to have to coordinate with printing of a bunch of guys that they all print whenever they can.
Yep.
And then you're going to sit on some of those comics for potentially up to a month.
They're going to have to get them to you.
Right. So there'll be a due date. You have to make this month's shipping. You have to get everything to us by XYZ. So that would be part of the contracts, the negotiation, or what have you. And I don't know, publishing wise, are printing companies still doing gang printing? Is there a way to save on the printing? There are so many factors of, what kind of discount can the publisher give to this distributor? And does this
Mike said they're only
distributor
charging 5%, which was, he was like, that's really low. So.
Okay.
So we'll see. Like I said, I just don't know. I like this is all hypothetical to me. I was just thinking about how would you?
We're talking about comics that if they have a print run of 2,000, that's too much.
Yeah, you're right. That'd be very low print run stuff.
Yeah, it's probably low print run, probably in the few hundreds, maybe just cutting it off at 500. They may be, we don't know what the requirements are. Get the name. We might be able to find them online and see what information that they already have. I mean, for there to be a company already, that means they would have to already have comic shops for it, and
the company is just forming.
Company's just forming.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's no. This is all in the talking stage, I think. And Mike knows the guy from cons. I don't know who he says is a nice guy, good guy.
Okay.
But I don't know his name.
Yeah, it's like now it's not hard to get all the comic shops information because that was part of the Diamond. That was part of the original Monopoly. You couldn't get that list, but now that they went through Chapter 11, that was something that was sold and apparently available online now. Every comic book shop in the United States is supposed to be somewhere online because of that. So,
also,
that
given that a lot of small press creators rely on a local presence to get their comics out, it's probably not probably not be cost effective, but it would be time saving if you have 4 distribution hubs across the country and you send your comics to the hub nearest you.
Yeah, it would make sense. I could see being that you test your comic book by doing a Kickstarter type of a thing, and then once you're done with that, you send it to whatever books you got left. You send that to those local distributors.
Yeah, because imagine that you publish your comic in California, but this distributor is in New York or something.
Right. Exactly. So whichever way you could get your comic book out there, I guess.
Yeah. The thing is, if you're trying to start a new distributor and you're already thinking about buying 4 locations, that's quite an investment. Even if they're smaller than just having one big location.
Right. Now, being that this person knows them from conventions, he might have enough contacts through the conventions to do something. Like I could see the conventions being a hub somehow. If there are enough conventions and there's something there. I don't know exactly what it is. I'm not smart enough for it, but there is something there using the conventions.
We will have to see.
Yes. But I'm all for more distributors.
Right.
There was a car. If you could piggyback on something else, would be nice. There was a car owner in the Indy 500 back in the 50s through the 70s. His name was Lindsay Hopkins. He was one of the largest Coca-Cola distributors in the country, and he would put the cars in his Coca-Cola distribution trucks and get them to the track.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
So if you're a Coca-Cola distributor, you can and you want to open your own comic book distribution business, they'll take care of the truck problem.
I tell you, it's like it's the trying to get comics to where the kids are, which there never are any kids anywhere. I always thought, get them into ice cream shops, get comics into ice cream shops, only because in Hoboken, New Jersey, there was a Carvel Center, and right next, whoever owned the Carvel also owned the mom and pop video store that was next door. So this is way back before Blockbusters. The only way you could rent videos were mom and pop shops had them. But when you went into this mom and pop shop, they had a couple of cardboard boxes full of comics, and they had a comic rack. But what they would do is all the new comics for the week would be on the window of the Carvel portion. So you would walk by to pick up ice cream, and there would be just a wall of comics of just the new comics out for that week. And so I always associated comics with ice cream because of that. Because you'd be standing there, maybe having ice cream, not going anywhere, like, oh, let me buy a comic. And I like going in there because they had back issues pretty much for the same price, if not cheaper, because like these are not the new comics. And it was like I always thought that, can that kind of merge somehow? And it was amazing. That was like, I always associated that. It's like, we got to get comics into ice cream shops. I just don't know how.
Yeah, printing and distribution. 2 more reasons why I subconsciously never want to finish my comic book.
That's a whole
I
other
heard-
job.
Yeah, Diamond is not publishing the physical previews anymore. No, I don't think so. The
Yeah.
online previews went live, and it has fewer publishers. Yeah, the way that they've been handling the whole the whole Chapter 11 process. All of the publishers are jumping ship. They really don't want to.
Yeah, and I feel sorry for the comic book shops because they're being told, "Oh, it's business as usual," but their whole many of them have their point of sale systems is through Diamond. Because though they're not a monopoly, they made a lot of comic book shops buy their computer system.
SG, what's up?
How you doing?
Hello.
And another topic for this week, I actually have a few notes for this week, was Sleepy Reader's here too.
Yeah,
hello.
It was live an hour ago.
It was.
Oh, sorry, I missed it.
Despite me publishing my quick version of what comics I got this week on TikTok, this week was the first time somehow I got on the comic book algorithm.
Really?
I don't know why I wasn't on it before. So I got to see a lot of videos of people showing off their comic books. And I have to say, I was a little surprised because first it showed me a lot of women, always young women, some younger men too, showing off what comic books they got this week. And a lot of them were new too. They were like new fans, which of course this isn't new. I've said this before, and we've all heard it before, that like the average comic book fan is only around for 3 or 4 years before they leave, and maybe some new fans come in, which was borne out by, when I first got on YouTube 3-4 years after that, a lot of the people I used to watch were then gone. They're out of comics. And so a lot of these, they look to be in their early 20s, some older guys too, who were older fans, and some younger guys too. One guy, like, he's been collecting comics for a month now or something like that. But I have to say, there was some interesting observations I had. I must have watched 100 videos this week just because they kept showing up. I'm like, oh, let me see that. Oh, let's see what they're getting. See what they get. Like I said, this is strictly anecdotal, but I would say a little more DC than Marvel. Not a lot. Just a little more DC than Marvel in these buyers. Very few pull lists.
Stop missing Mars.
Hello there. Most of them buy their comics. Never tell anyone new to comics to go on YouTube.
Right. They're going to get weird ideas, like the comics having monetary value or something.
I noticed there were a few of them who immediately were cleaning. There was at least 2 videos I saw where this one woman was every now and then she would trade in the comics she didn't want anymore. And Secondhand Charles, is that the name of it? There's a chain I've heard a million times on YouTube, but they're not around here. Like Second and Charles or Secondhand Charles. I don't know which one, but it's a place that sells like pop culture stuff, including comics. They're a chain. And you could go in there and trade in your comics for store credit. So a lot of people were like, matter of fact, I saw one girl who, the cheapest she got an entire short box of Buffy comics for $10. And she got a short box of like Buffy magazines for $20. And she kept the ones she wanted and brought the rest to Second and Charles. And I noticed that with a couple of them. It's like they got the comics they're going to keep, and they got the comics they're going to get rid of. So I noticed that was sort of a theme in there too. If they had they were figuring out right away to get rid of these comics if they don't want them.
Good for them.
I was like, good for them. Takes most of us decades.
Most new YouTubers I see are returning fans collectors. I haven't seen these young ones.
They're on TikTok. I only have seen them on TikTok because I finally got on despite the fact that I published my comic book haul, the quick version on Instagram and TikTok. This is the first time I've got on the comic book haul YouTube. Second and Charles. Okay, mainly it's a bookstore.
Are you using hashtags on yours on TikTok?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. I'm actually quite surprised it's taking you that long to get onto.
I don't know why.
Yeah, I
wish there's a plan.
I could never figure it out. There's some stuff you put up and it goes somewhat viral, and then there's other stuff that's like, only 6 people looked at this. I thought it was witty, but you never know.
So, like the things I noticed, very few pull lists on it. They've only been collecting for 2-3 years, maybe a year, months, some of them. And so they don't really do pull lists. They go into the store and see what they can find. And some of them are like, oh, I got, Catwoman. I got 2, 6, 7. And they just go back and they're just buying whatever they can happen to find in the store. There was only sort of a couple of older people I saw, only one of whom was female, have pull lists where they're, but these younger collectors are just going into the store and buying whatever they want. And almost every one of them bought at least 1 or 2 alternate covers. It's not like they collect alternate covers. But if there's a cover there that they think is cool, they'll buy it, even if they have the regular issue too. So I noticed that too, a lot of alternate covers.
I think that maybe a lot of people are getting to a lot of young people are getting to the point of, buying what they like. Not necessarily to collect, but what they're enjoying.
What catches their eyes. Not like they don't even know what they like yet. In terms of, like, I once again saw a TikTok on this is to me the worst advice to give a new collector is buy what you love. Well, the problem is they don't know what they love. And that's why they're just going into the store.
The idea should be, okay, what books do you like? What TV shows do you like? What do you want to see in movies? And then you'll direct them at the comic that's most like it.
Yeah, that's another thing, too. They all know the movies, and they all 100% know that comics is a different continuity, and they're okay with that.
That's amazing.
None of them are like, how come that this is? They're like, oh, one who I was watching was even, oh, Peacemaker's in this one. I've never read a Peacemaker comic. They 100% know and are comfortable with the fact that it's different continuity in comics than the movies. Even though they know all the characters from the movies, they're not expecting the comics to be the movies. And that was, a surprise to me, because we've always talked about this, about how maybe they're going in expecting the comics to be, and that they know it's a different thing. They know it's a different continuity, and they're fine with it.
There's one thing that they might not want, which is to buy comics every week.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why they don't have pull lists, and they miss issues. Mm-hmm. But they're kind of okay with missing issues. They'll find them. If not, more than a few of them said, "Well, if I don't find it, I'll buy it online."
Okay. Birch proposed the idea that for a new generation that is used to either manga or Dogman and other similar stuff, there's no point in doing periodical comics. Just
none
have
of
the
them
trades
went
out.
manga. None of them showed anything Japanese. It was all U.S. comics.
Okay.
I also wonder if because you said it's skewing towards DC, and I'm wondering if
not a ton, but yeah,
right. but I'm wondering if that's because DC is kind of like maybe the next Marvel in the sense of a bunch of these movies will be coming out.
It's because of
And
Absolute.
it's because of Absolute.
That's one of the things. I notice
Okay.
a lot of them are really into the Absolute line.
Right. So there's a line for them.
Right.
The numbering of whatever, even though they the comic companies do renumber stuff, Absolute is not their father's DC.
Right.
So they
it's all below 10.
So it could be one of those things where, oh, this is for me.
Right.
And then, and because the newer movies that are coming out that they're already planning to see, they know the Marvel stuff. They're promised something with DC. And so far, the DC stuff looks promising and hopeful, so to speak. It might be that they are looking at that as being something for them. I could easily see it because sometimes when when something is either launch anew, a lot of people would jump on it.
Yeah. And I am the
Yes.
only one who buys new comics weekly, but Wilson has a pull list now.
Right.
So even though he may only get to the shop every 2 weeks or so, he still has weekly comics.
Even when I was buying floppies, I was not buying every week. I went to the shop once every month. Then I started going to the shop every 2 months, and then every 3 months. The thing is, I only kept about 2 or 3 books on the pull list, so I could get the regular customer discount for the trade paperbacks, not specifically for the comics.
Yeah, and it was easy for me to be weekly, like when I went to college, because I always passed the comic book shop. So weekly was easy when I was going to college. And then when I was working at Marvel, again, weekly was easy because, stopping by the comic book shop after work was almost a daily thing.
Yeah, DC is more reader accessible. They're less crazy with the events than Marvel is.
And I feel like the large companies like Marvel and DC has waves of who's the top one and then what's easy to get to and stuff like that. And there's so much DC stuff going on right now. You could easily see someone going, "Let me give that a try."
Yeah, Sequential Geek said, "I only know board games and do Magic the Gathering tournaments by a comic shop sales clerk." No, what are you in the comic shop if you only know the games? You guys see what books from DC and Marvel that's been canceled so far this year?
No.
I don't really
I
keep
assume they're
track.
all going to be. I assume they're all miniseries.
Yeah, I don't keep track of like the daily news type cycles that Marvel and DC has. Like if there's a large amount of news, I'll catch something. But again, I think the last big news was
Listen, when I look at the comics that Marvel's putting out, like it's like this month there will be 2 X-Men comics. One will be number 3 and the other number 7. Next month there will be 3. One will be number 5, the other number 11, and the other number 6. So I don't. It's not a question of getting canceled or not. Since everything gets rebooted in a year or so, none of the comics following the comics doesn't make sense. Nothing is designed to last.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and I have to say that female superheroes are attractive to the female buyers. That's true. Turns out.
127. Which one was 127? I don't know. Well, it's not Spawn.
127. I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm not too sure.
Has it ever been rebooted? Nightwing came out.
Nightwing's been rebooted,
and it was high up in numbers. I don't know if I think it was around 120 even.
Well,
Okay,
yeah. There's no point in having a Metamorpho solo comic right now. And I don't know why they keep trying. Here's the thing. Just because when you read the press releases they send out, they say Marvel Entertainment is a company with over 5,000 character library. Just because you own 5,000 characters does not mean that you have to put out 5,000 comics every month just to keep the brand. Okay.
And you also got to remember in those, because they play with those numbers. So in that is you have Spider-Man and you have every character that appeared in the Spider-Man comics. So the Daily Bugle cast, the background characters and all that. They inflate those numbers. They have maybe like a good 100 core real superhero characters, and then everybody else is their supporting staff.
Well, used to have comic books based on previous comic book stores. Yeah. Now they do, but they do stupid things with them, like the idea that let's insert Kamala Khan into a bunch of really important storylines just because it doesn't make any sense.
That's how they get people to like at night. The only reason I got Nightwing is because I was watching those YouTube videos, and it happened to catch my eye that was a high number. Metamorpho was clearly a miniseries. That's for you, Paolo, who was criticizing putting out that Metamorpho.
But Power Girl was not. Power Girl was not a miniseries.
They're corporate synergy.
And I think the current JSA is very bound to get canceled before it even reaches number 20. But if it got canceled at 12, they can claim that it's a miniseries, but it clearly isn't. No Marvel based. Yeah, something like that. Okay.
They probably wanted a Metamorpho trade out for when the movie arrives. Could be.
Yeah.
And Metamorpho is very Silver Age, right? There.
Yeah.
Bronze.
Silver Age
It's Bronze Age with it's a Silver Age comic published in a Bronze Age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
And the creators are all past, so there's no extra money have to go to them.
There were not sure if these are planned as much. There's so few ongoing series now.
Yeah, well, Marvel no longer puts anywhere on the cover when it's a mini series, but DC they do. So it does say 1 of 4 if it's a 4-issue mini.
But one other thing I noticed when watching all these videos, amongst all the younger people buying Marvel and DC books, there were 3 indie books that they all bought that popped up over and over. Only 3. And they were the same 3. It was Battle Beast, probably because of the Invincible TV show.
Invincible TV show, yeah.
There was, what was the other one? Battle Beast, Exquisite Corpses. I guess because they all know James Tynion from Marvel and DC. Exquisite, matter of fact, I got issue 2 of Exquisite Corpses this week. And this is the one, and I guess it's because it's like a concept they can all kind of relate to, because it's all the 12 assassins fighting each other. But not one of them mentioned Michael Walsh, the artist. All of them mentioned James Tynion, the writer. Good book, too. I enjoy it. And there was even one version of this that came polybagged with a card. Here's the card on the back, but it came with this actual card. I was like, oh, that's cool. I would have got the card one, but I think might be for a game. I don't even know. But Battle Beast, Exquisite Corpses, and Bug Wars. Bug Wars was one that I bought the first issue of and was like, but who is it written by? I forget who it's written by. I think it was written by, another Marvel guy. Who wrote Bug Wars out there? Somebody tell me. But those 3 came up over and over and over. So anybody who was buying Marvel and DC primarily, if they were buying any indie comic, it was one of those 3. So it was like, I found that interesting because I had no idea. Jason Aaron, there we go.
Sequential Geek says there are some indie cats right now making some DIY stuff that will be the next big thing. And SPX? No, if If it's DIY, it's going to get made on crowdfunders. Imagine 12 centers. Yeah, I guess 68. I guess 1968. I think. Yeah, Master Reba's phone books by buying individual issues. They will cancel. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing. You can't have 50 books out there and then market none of them. Then you complain that they get canceled. It's like, what was Saga? Saga what?
No one was buying. Well, there was an issue of Saga out this week, but no, that was not one of the 3. I don't know. I don't know if they know who Brian K. Vaughan is. Because if you're
here's this. I don't understand don't see the point in launching a comic at SPX if it's easier to reach people online.
Yeah, the reason you'd launch it at SPX is to get some immediate reaction.
Yeah.
A small press expo. To get some immediate reaction and feedback. Kid Goblin says, I wonder if all these new kids are collecting because they want to keep up on the Coolometer and the Mort of the Month.
Yeah, you should buy comics by the top 10 writers and artists. Marvel pushes more dolls to take up shelf space. Yeah, that's been Marvel's thing for
MO for years.
Since the beginning of Marvel.
SPX may lead to online coverage.
It could.
Suppose. The question is not whether they get online coverage, is whether you can generate heat all by yourself with your crowdfunded book just by having an online presence.
It's tough. It's a tough road to hoe either way.
Yeah.
But I don't know if any of these early 20s people would know who Brian K. Vaughan and Saga is.
No.
Only one of them mentioned she collected comics in high school and talked a little bit about her high school comics. And she was in her early 20s at most. So the only
if you want to go to the publishers, SPX is better because you can talk to the publishers directly.
Because what would any young person know Brian K. Vaughan from besides Saga? I don't think he's done anything in a while for the big 2, has he?
No, and I'm not sure he's done anything new. Yes.
Besides Spawn, Saga.
Yeah.
Because they obviously
why the last man was before Saga. It's not what's BKV doing now that isn't Saga.
Because all those early 20s people were clearly following, Invincible because of the TV show, Bug Wars because of Jason Aaron, and Exquisite Corpses because of James Tynion. But they've all done Marvel work. That's where they know them from.
Right, and then we also have to accept the fact that they may all be following each other, and wherever someone may have started, it's on their feed. What is the cool meter? We laugh about it, but that may be the popular thing that's going on. Are those particular books?
Yeah,
they're all in there, at least second or third issues by now, or at least they knew Battle Beast was coming out. Right. So you have that going on. So I could easily see that, because there's been plenty of times that I'll be watching people's videos on TikTok and they'll talk about a comic book and it's like, oh, I'll keep that in mind. That may be something I may want to pick up. And again, the algorithm will show you the things you like, or what it thinks you like. And if they're all following each other, it becomes one of those things like the word of mouth. Of course, if everyone's buying this, I should be buying it as well.
I like Sleepy's comment. Yeah. It's funny to
the
think
award of reading the highest percent of checks goes to Jared Osborne. Wait, that's not correct.
I'm not quite sure what that means either.
While the Last Man was getting a DC compact, there was a what? Oh, yeah, but the thing is, BKV is kind of resting on past laurels right now, which happens because you need to, I guess.
Well, it's a hit still, Saga, and it's made him a lot of money. So I don't know that he has to grind like he used to.
Yeah, if it's a
How old is Brian
constant
K.
selling.
You should remake Why the Last Man into a movie or just redo the show.
Same with DMZ.
They're not going to redo the show. If the show didn't work the first time, they're not going to do it again. At least not for the next 20 years.
Huh.
Or 10. Nowadays, 10 years feels like 20. Corvidel is here. Hello, BKV, my nemesis, as a new graphic novel, Spectators. Given an advanced copy. It's from a Kickstarter. Many naked women, some even fly. Flying naked women. Yeah, I'm all for that.
Give the kids what they want.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was. I'm glad I got to see all those videos.
Yeah, it's good to know that people still at least are buying some comics.
Right.
Vertigo's Unfollow. I don't remember that. Was that from the when they tried to bring Vertigo back?
Yeah, I don't know that one.
If he's busy in Hollywood. Yeah, sure, I guess. What is he writing in Hollywood, or is he looking to sell something?
No idea.
I don't get when these guys say that they're too busy doing TV and movies. It's not possible for you to write as much for TV as it is for a comic.
Oh, but I'm sure it's one of those things where they wrote something, they pitched it, and now they're in that development hell thing, and they keep getting rewrites and stuff like that. And I'm sure because, if they're new in the business, they're more than happy to be writing this stuff, thinking they're going to be something, the next Walking Dead.
Only 2 people have Saga on a pull list. Exactly, the creators. Do you have a favorite book from your pickups this week?
A favorite? I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah, what did you pick up? Because I don't think I watched the video.
Let's see. I already showed you Exquisite Corpse. Show you another one. Battle Beast. I mentioned that one. Battle Beast was fun. This is going to be like an all fighting book, and seeing how creative they can get with the all fighting. But in this issue, they gave us a little twist where Battle Beast is seeing if he can get a nice and bloody. Is seeing if he can die in battle. He has such battle rage all the time that he's looking for someone who can defeat him in battle. And he's got a ship that wants him to die. He's got a sentient ship that wants him to die. Matter of fact, the ship this episode said, let me confess, my whole plan right now was to bring you out into the middle of space and let you starve to death. Battle Beast was like, I barely have to eat. Me starving to death will take. It's like I can throw myself out in space and survive, and someone will come along long before I starve to death. So he's like, oh well. And then they went to another. And the sort of little game twist in this is the 2 battles he won actually helped the people he defeated in battle. So he was kind of pissed off that he helped people when he wants to die. But, of course, 6 covers, lots of Battle Beast covers to buy.
A lot of covers to choose from, not to have to buy.
Yeah, no. Like I said, all of the
pick the one you like.
That's what they were doing. If there was an extra cover that they really liked, they'd buy it, but they weren't looking to collect them all.
Yeah. Unfollow was about the social media billionaire that died and left his billions to 140 people. Who remembers of his social media? The catch: if one person dies, the share of the rest increases.
I vaguely remember that being people talking about that on YouTube.
Gore Vidal and Saga in the same sentence is always separated by the word no. Yeah. Did I hear something about flying naked? Well, that will get your mind out of fixing dinner. BKV is just a writer in Hollywood, also a producer and showrunner. So he's actually doing the thing that makes money.
Yeah.
Ted Goblin. I bought Spider-Man versus Hulk Back to School edition from Sanger Harris in a dollar bin yesterday. Just so I can tell you. Yes, I suppose it was captivating.
Yes. So covered by John Romita Sr., I believe. And I do have one of those Singer books. I do have a couple of them, actually. Each regional store had their own kind of so it's a comic book, and then there'll be a catalog in them. I remember one of them had boots.
Yes, Gore has to get one issue of Saga to put away in mint condition and one issue of Saga to read, you know.
And then one more to rip.
Exactly. To play the game.
Play the game at home.
But with him, it's only issues of Saga.
And here's a weird little. I want to note that sometimes I watch over on Mercenaut's channel. He's got a show called Hot Book Alert Live. I almost never watch it live, but I'll catch it on the rerun there. But what the show is about, he and a couple of his buddies who, you know, they're big back issue guys, even back to the Golden Age stuff they like. So they got like a wide variety of stuff they like. And so they usually, like Mercenaut usually goes on eBay every week just to see what interesting sales are there. Hence it's called Hot Book Alert. Just to get people to tune in, you know, the books, you know, they're going over Golden Age books. I don't really know how hot they are, but they give you the sales of, you know, some more expensive books. And one weird one that baffled them and baffles me too is this one right here, which I got last summer when I was collecting these Marvel 10th anniversary Submariners. This is Submariner 43, square bound too. Where's that? Mm-hmm. Just because I don't know.
Is that from the month that they had 52 pages?
I guess so, because it's square bound, so it must be bigger than. And I would call this one somewhere around a 7.5. Just looking at the cover, pretty good shape. It cost me altogether $14.03. The actual book itself was $8. Now, on eBay this week, sold of course, CG Seed 9.6 of that issue. And of course, it came in at such a high price that they were like, what? Who would spend that money on that issue? And it said rare on it too. I don't know how rare it is, but it's probably tough to get in high grade. But just take a guess at what a 9.6 slabbed of that issue sold for. Cost me $8 in a 7.5.
Okay,
I wouldn't pay more than $28.
Right, but if people paid attention, it was something ridiculous. So at least 700.
3,150.
What?
Oh.
That's okay. Why they're like, what? Why that is there like there's so many good books you could get for $3,000. Why that one?
Rare. That's
I could buy a bunch of dollar. I could buy a bunch of dollar bins for $3,000.
Yeah,
You could buy a good copy of. Does Walking Dead #1 still go for about that? I don't even know. But you could buy books that would probably appreciate in value for more than that one will.
I would rather buy a Silver Age Spider-Man comic.
Yeah.
That I know that it would go up no matter what. There is nothing of that book that you showed me. It makes me even think what could possibly be important in there. I'm actually surprised that you said it's 50 pages. Because again, yes, it is part of the 10th anniversary.
But no one collects those but me.
No one, because no one knows about the 10th anniversary but you. Because I don't even know if you may have to do a show just on the 10th anniversary to let people know about it.
I try to let people know about it, but not that many people. My reach isn't that long.
But you have the anniversary, 10th anniversary. Is Namor? Is there a first appearance of anybody in that book? Because it doesn't. You show that cover, it rings no bell to why that could even be important. It is wild that it's that price. And could it just be that someone decided this is going to be the thing? This is going to be a hot book. Because rare is funny, especially on eBay, because that just means I didn't see it. I couldn't find a copy of it on eBay. So it must be rare. Or no one cares about the book.
Yeah, no one cares about it. Like I got it for $8 last summer or whenever it was. For raw copy, of course, not in a 9.6, but still, it was like $3,100 for that book.
Yeah,
I've never heard of any issue #1. I don't think goes for $3,100. Yeah, and you could buy some great original art for that money.
If you have $3,100 to spend on art, like Sleepy Reader says,
well,
you can probably buy 3 or 4 pages from Filipe Andrade, the guy from Portugal who works with Ram V, and it'll probably be a better investment.
There would seem to be like 1,000 better investments than that.
For that kind of money, how much fun would you have going through Artist Alley and just buying artwork from people?
Are you going to sell your copy?
Mine's not a 9.6 slab, so no, I'm not going to sell it.
No, you're going to have to sign it and just say this is a rare Jared Osborne copy of it, and just do a remark on it.
I could not believe how much that went for. No, as I said, neither could they, but it was just like, what?
It feels a lot like the Wizard top 10 comics. That these are the top 10 comics, and these are also the top 10 comics we ordered. That's what it feels like. I'm not saying that's what it is, but that's what it feels like.
Press it out, Jared. I did actually tape a comic for my LCS. Where is it? I was sitting there at my LCS, we were chatting like usual. And this is Doctor Strange, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. And let's see if we can see it up this. See that line right through Doctor Strange's face that goes all the way over to the end?
Yeah.
That part had fallen off.
So you
it was
restarted.
Completely gone. It was fallen off, but in the bag. And Roy, the LCS owner, was like, should I tape this on? He's like, they looked up how much the book was worth. And like in a 3.0, it's worth $20. So like, this is more like a 1.5.
Right.
They're like, what should we tape it on with? And I was like, acid-free framers tape. That's what you'd use on a comic book.
Right, because that doesn't damage it, and it can be. I believe it can be removed. Right?
It can be removed, and it doesn't damage it. They're like, do you have any? I'm like, yeah, of course. Like, here, take this home and tape it. We'll give you a free foil comic or something. So I taped that on for my LCS.
Did you record the process?
I should have.
Content.
No, I didn't think of it at the time. And if you're going to use any tape, make sure you have Bestine. This is rubber cement thinner and will take off tape. because I screwed up the first time.
Ooh.
I had to take off the tape. The tape it didn't go down straight. It went down crooked. I was like, crap. At least half of it did. So I'm like, all right, let me get the Bestine out. I actually have a video to show people how to use Bestine and remove tape from.
That's the stuff that you suggest. Every time I re-upload that video about the tape that got on the cover.
Yes, probably.
Yeah. So I have a video with a I think it's a DC catalog, and I put the book down, and I had just got coffee, and I pulled the receipt off of it, and
Right.
and on some of these coffee ones they got like this round sticker. I had taken it off and I put it down right on top of the comic. It's like, oh. So I know there is a solvent you always talk about using.
Right. And you don't want to take a whiff of this sequential geek, as he said
not
there.
at all.
No.
OSHA made Marvel put in a fan because of this stuff, where they had to put in ventilation where we were using this Bestine, which is why we always had to use the rubber cement outside the door of the stat room on top of those file cabinets, because that's where the fan
I remember
was.
that's where. Yep.
Like I said, I believe it was OSHA who made Marvel, because they didn't have a fan there. And OSHA said, no. You put a fan in if you're using those chemicals.
And I remembered in the coffee room, I think they had like a list of chemicals and what to be aware of and look out for, because at that time some chemicals were being changed to be healthier, but it's like,
right.
By how much?
That'd be a great mini comic about the use of rubber cement and Bestine at Marvel. Yeah.
They could they could have put it in Marvel's annual report.
Speaking of Marvel, I did pick up If This Be Doomsday, the Marvel Comics 49 facsimile.
Mm-hmm.
I think I picked up 48 a little while ago, too. So now they're out with 49. And I actually did a painting of this cover once. I put all sorts of geometric shapes in front of it, too. My friend John has that. I gave it to him. But yeah, I'm very sort of familiar with this particular cover, having done a painting of it.
And look at that. It's the first appearance of Galactus's the popcorn bucket head.
The popcorn bucket. We were discussing the popcorn bucket at the LCS, I think.
Oh yeah.
Could people smoke in the office at Marvel in the 1990s?
They weren't supposed to, but they did.
Now, there wasn't smoking in the office when I was there. Everybody went outside to smoke.
Everyone did.
Yeah.
There was
some people may have smoked in their office.
Yes, I can attest for the fact that someone did smoke in their office after hours, and they used to keep this mega-sized bag of charcoal that was supposed to absorb the smoke, so the office did not smell like smoke.
Okay.
I can't say I recall them smoking during the day, but once they hit 5 o'clock, they would light up in their office.
I remember occasionally hearing you can smoke in so-and-so's office.
Yeah.
I don't remember when that was. I don't remember. Like everybody, my friend John, who I worked there with, smoked, and he'd always go outside for a smoke break, and I'd go with him too. I'm like, hey, he's taking a smoke break. I am too.
Yeah, I knew enough smokers who did take breaks and go outside.
Yeah.
That's for sure. But was there smoking by these soda machines in the back, outside of the bullpen?
No.
Okay. I wasn't sure if people were smoking.
Occasionally they were smoking in the stairwell. That was right.
Okay.
I remember a couple of John and Leah smoking in the stairwell.
Right, because there was and the only reason why I knew that was because of the illustrations that were drawn.
Right.
Of
That
this,
popped into my head when you said
that's what I
smoking.
remember. So that's why I wasn't sure exactly where it was, because that illustration was in the hallway, but it didn't specify if they were in the
It was in the stairwell. The
Okay.
illustration was. I know because I have a picture of them by it.
Okay.
So it
So
wasn't
I've seen that picture.
at the back of Marvel was a lobby with two like vending machines in the lobby and two out like the back way out down to 27th Street had a couple of elevators.
Right, it had the freight elevator and regular passenger elevators.
And so no one was smoking in the lobby, but the the lobby also had a doorway to the stairwell, and people would smoke in the stairwell. So that was the secret smoking spot.
Right there, and then like one of the execs' offices,
Yeah.
they could smoke in there. But again, I think it was after 5.
Right.
Other people who I knew smoked mostly just went outside.
Right. But there are legendary stories of, who was it? Rick Parker when he was in the bullpen. So this is the 70s into
Okay.
the 80s. Rick Parker, I think, was it Maury Koromoto? Might not have been him. But Rick hated smoking. And he sat next to one of the other people working in the, it may have been Maury, it may not have been, who would smoke all day. So there was a constant battle between the two of them. And they both had tricks up their sleeves. I've only read about those. Maybe on Elliot Brown's blog. I can't remember.
I don't think I know any stories about when Rick worked in the bullpen itself. Or I haven't heard any stories, I recall. So I got to go back to Elliot's blogs to read it.
You can get the stories of him in the Army in the 60s in his graphic novel Drafted, which I haven't read yet. It's on my shelf, but I still haven't gotten around to reading it. I read some pages when he posted them on Facebook. But.
Curious if he's going to do any stories about when he was a cab driver, because I've heard some of those stories.
I like his he used to have his own little museum in the lobby of his apartment. I thought that was a cool idea in the 70s.
Yeah.
Where he lived somewhere downtown in New York City. And he had just gotten out of school. I can't even remember if he went to college for art or not. He stumbled onto being a letterer for the Marvel. He's got this all written down on his Facebook page and stuff. But at one point, he, like I said, was living in this apartment downtown, and it wasn't a real lobby. It was just like this small window at the bottom of the staircase before you got to the door and stoop going outwards. And he would put on little art shows in that window. And he named it something, the something museum. And for a few years as he lived there, he'd always put on art shows in that window. And people would come by to see what was there.
Amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
And the Sunny looked smoking hot, so he was someone back in the day.
Let's see, another comic I got. Vanishing Point, issue number 2, which is a sort of Jetsons themed comic. This is the one that's going to be, Mark Russell is the writer. There's going to be a different artist each issue. Ryan Alexander Tanner, does that say? And there's going to be sort of an anthology in that each issue will be a different story. And both stories were a little sad. Matter of fact, I had to dig out the first issue again so I can refile it. Because I originally thought this was going to be a one-shot. Then I was like, oh no, this is the one that's the anthology. So I had this in with my one-shots instead of my anthology, my regular series. But I enjoyed this one. I never liked the making the cover look like an old comic thing, though.
Right.
I don't know. That just doesn't do anything for me. I want my comics to look new, even my old ones. But, it's a Jetson story. Then it takes a turn into another kind of story. And I enjoyed it thoroughly. But much like the first issue, it ended a little sadly. But good stuff, man. I think it's like a 6-issue mini. It's from Mad Cave. So I think it's like a 5 or 6 issue mini. So I'm down for 5 or 6 different stories. Though I don't know if I've read much Mark Russell. I can't remember what he's written.
Yeah.
I don't recall myself.
I know his name. But I can't remember if I've bought anything by him before. Sequential Geek is off. Have a good one.
See you later.
Take care. Have a good one.
Peace out.
Anyway, there's a new issue out of that Youngblood Reloaded or whatever it is. Because they're reformatting the original Youngblood comics and putting them out with. I'm not entirely sure if that thing has new dialogue or not, because some of that doesn't look very good.
That just popped into my head in watching all those TikTok pull haul videos. Somebody got himself an issue of the original Youngblood #1. Know how much you paid for it? $1.
Of course.
So that you can still get the original Youngblood #1 for cheaper.
For just about cover price, if not less.
Than the redo.
A quick Google search says Mark Russell's did Batman Dark Age, Superman Space Age, Fantastic Four Life Story, Snagglepuss.
Oh, that's the guy.
Speed Racer.
Okay.
Marvel Snapshot. So they seem to be like one-shot type stories or little mini-series.
A Marvel and DC guy, though.
Marvel and DC, yeah. Dropbox to complete series. Stereo, Wonder Twins, Rompus Room, The Flintstones.
Yep, that's what Comic Crack just mentioned. He did do the Flintstones book.
Oh, I remember that.
Prez.
People liked that Flintstones books, I remember. I didn't read it, but... Yeah, both
Prez,
of these
is that bringing back the DC President book?
Oh, Prez?
Yeah, he did that as well. And I've heard of, Snagglepuss was kind of like those DC popping back into their Hanna-Barbera stuff.
Right. That was that period where they were doing all that, the Flintstones and all that stuff.
Seeing if they could bring back, play with the IPs that they own.
Huh.
They take out every few years to, make sure they keep the copyrights on those.
Because our lawyers demanded it. I guess comics are a cheap way to do that too. Because if you had to produce a whole new cartoon, but now you can just
Give Carson. Oh, that's from that line. What was it called?
Dave Carson does not sound familiar.
Yeah, Kip Carson is one of the. Kip Carson was one of those characters that had a backup feature in Action Comics or Adventure Comics back in the day. Action Comics, I think.
In the 60s, I remember.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
He was also part of the Forgotten Heroes with Animal Man and the Dolphin and.
I think I have a Cave Carson issue that was in like Brave and Bold or something from the early 60s. It was one of those. He's got like a time machine, I think, that drills or does he go underground? I can't remember.
Yeah, he does. It goes. It's not a time machine. It's It's one of those things that they used to make tunnels with.
Right. Okay. If somebody else I'm thinking was a time machine, probably Time Tunnel. I'm thinking of.
Yeah, Young Animal Line. Yeah, I remember. There was that other comic made, the Doom Patrol, I think, made by that singer, the singer from the band.
Yeah.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah,
that guy.
the guy who wrote that comic that became a TV show.
Oh, and he's part of a band into comics. Gene
My
Simmons.
Chemical Romance. Is that
Oh,
the
that
band?
guy. Yeah, that's the band. I don't recall that guy's name.
Neither can I.
I don't recall the band's music either.
Yeah, I don't know My Chemical Romance at all.
I could hear a song go, yeah, that's one of their songs. That's about it. I don't follow.
I don't think I could
Black
identify
Parade,
the song.
I think is one of the songs.
Umbrella Academy. That's the comic.
Oh, okay.
Slowly it's coming to me. I'm trying to use my brain. Gerard Way. There we go. Eric P. has it for us. He worked in comics before the band. 62 has it for us, too.
Before the band? I only remember him doing those comics because he was in the band.
Well, he didn't say he was famous in comics. He may not have been the most well-known comic creator.
It's like when people remember the guy from the Pet Shop Boys did paste ups at Marvel UK before he got famous in the Pet Shop Boys.
I wasn't even aware of that.
Nope.
No, it's not the singer; it's the keyboard player.
Despite reading a little article about Captain Britain recently, I still know very little about Marvel UK.
Yeah, and you know what? That's something that could be, a documentary. Because I know nothing about any of the other outside offices. You have Marvel Pacific Rim. I never heard anyone from there. I just knew that they existed. You have Marvel UK, and then you had whatever was Marvel LA for a short time.
Right, but Marvel UK was there before any one of those because it was set up in 74. No, before that it was set up in 72. And who was the first guy in charge of it? Because Larry Lieber ended up being in charge of it for a while. That was after Atlas, I think.
Yeah.
And they did the Captain Britain comic, which was their only new comic.
Right.
What stands out most in my mind when somebody says Marvel UK is back when we used to get our, complimentary bundles of comics at Marvel. Everybody would dump their Marvel UKs. No one would. Marvel UK, get rid of that one, get rid of that one. It was like nobody ever even looked at them. They saw that Marvel UK logo and it was like, dump it, dump it, dump it. Keep these ones. Dump those Marvel. I was like, whoa.
Most of those that had the worst artists.
Yeah.
But there's an early Carlos Pacheco miniseries, Dark Guard. It's not Carlos Pacheco at his best. And then of course there's the Mistec Wars, because one of the most confusing comics that I've ever read, and it had art by Brian Hitch, and it does not look like Brian Hitch at all. It looks like Brian Hitch trying to imitate Alan Davis, but it comes out like that issue of Guardians of the Galaxy where Herb Trimpe was trying to draw like Eric Larson. Still trying to complete the Marvel UK line. Well, the one from the 90s should be... Well, I'm not sure if it's easy. You probably have to find the comics. And then there was a subset of Marvel UK comics. They had an imprint. I forget right now. But it was their attempt at having an epic line, but the comics were owned by Marvel.
Heavy Hitters?
No, that was Epic. That was the Epic, one of the Epic relaunches. Let me check, because I remember one of the titles. It was called Mortigan Goth Immortalis.
I don't remember that name at all.
Oh yeah, Marvel Frontier Comics. That was the imprint.
Frontier. Oh, I don't recall that at all.
There's some Warheads from Marvel. And of course, there's always Death's Head.
Yep.
I always liked Marvel UK as a kid. It was greedy somehow. Well, yeah, it was. Death's Head was enjoyable, exactly.
There are
Pendragon. There was what?
Eric P says Gerard Way went to the School of Visual Arts in New York City. Oh, okay. I think who did I hear was also an art school kid? Rob Zombie. I think Rob Zombie. I think he also. I don't know which school he went to in New York City, but he once again was an art school kid and started a band just because that's what art school kids do. And all of a sudden, his band took off, and he was like, "Okay, I'm a rock star now." He didn't even really set out to be a rock star. It just kind of happened.
Or you can do like the Belgian guy who stops being an economist to become a novelist. Being a novelist doesn't work, so he starts writing comic books, and then he makes more money than all of the artists.
He went to Parsons School of Design.
Who did?
Rob Zombie.
Oh, okay. He went to Parsons.
He went to Parsons for college.
That is where Daisy Wells, who was on this show ages back, went to. Parsons.
Nice.
I got called a parson once.
Oh, yeah?
Walking down the street in New York City, wearing my painted duster. I think I was heading over to Port Authority from a Marvel event. And this guy, I think a homeless guy, not 100% sure, walks up to me and starts matching stride and walking next to me, which of course makes me go, "What's going on here?"
Right.
And he looks over at me and goes, "You know who you are?" And I'm like, "No, I don't." He goes, "You're the parson." Okay. And then he walked away.
And how did that make you feel, being a parson?
Like the parson. Okay.
You can't call yourself that. You must be Christian to parson.
I found it a little odd, but It's New York. It's Hell's Kitchen.
The New York story,
And it was more Hell's Kitchen-ish in those days. Probably the early 2000s.
Right.
I would guess. 40th Street days. Maybe. Because that's why whatever the gathering was over on like 43rd. There used to be a place they'd go to like on 43rd Street and 8th Avenue or something. I can't remember what it was. Eric P's got some more Rob Zombie info for us.
It's part of the 80s NYC noise rock scene with bands like Sonic Youth. Sonic Youth were very popular in Portugal for a while.
Pee-wee's Playhouse was in New York City? I always assumed it was in California, but I've never really given it a thought.
Speaking of Pee-wee's Playhouse, it only recently has come out that Cyndi Lauper did do the theme song to Pee-wee's Playhouse. She had kept it a secret for years, but like recently she's like, "Okay, I'll confess that was me," because she didn't want to have her name on it, only because she didn't want to take away from the show. So it's like she didn't want it to be like that big of a deal.
It looks like Pee Wee's Playhouse started in New York City and moved to L.A. Okay. I didn't know it was ever in New York City.
Yeah.
And I assumed it was in L.A. only because that's where TV shows get made. Though nowadays, Vancouver probably makes as many as L.A.
And I think it might have started
Pee-wee
playing in like off-Broadway shows. I think that's how he first introduced concept.
Ah, okay.
Might have been like a local New York City type of show, and then it eventually became something. Then they pitched the show, and then production-wise, he was like, "Okay, we're going to LA with it."
Yep. I can see
I do remember like early late night shows type of thing, recorded at blah blah blah, and it would be snippets of him doing stuff, and you could see like the start of the show was in pieces. So I think he was developing a play that became a show. I know there's like a recent documentary.
Yeah, there's a documentary.
I haven't watched that yet. Yeah, I haven't watched that yet. So I may be completely wrong, memory-wise, how it was. But my sister said she enjoyed it. She said it was wild to give it a try.
And another comic I got is, this is funny, Usagi Yojimbo. As you can see here, this is 10,000 Plums, part 4 of 5, legacy number 283, but it's Taboo, part 1. So it's like, I think they just put these out in 5-issue minis, and if the 10,000 Plums story only goes 3 issues, so be it. We'll put a 2-parter after it.
Right.
I find that funny. And of course, it's Usagi Yojimbo. Good stuff.
It could be that they might be setting it up also for like, for trade paperbacks. Yeah, this is the 1,000 Plums saga.
Right.
Kind of
it has nothing to do with the 1,000 Plums story. It's just the one that comes after it. But good stuff. As I always say, there's only A level Usagi Yojimbo. It's either an A+, an A, or an A-. I'd give this one an
A. Excellent. That should be waiting for me when I get to the shop.
Oh, that Eric P. Pee-wee. Okay.
Okay, some footage, right? Usagi's very sad if you know about Sakai's brother.
I do not. But this also has to do with the persecution of Christians back in the day. So I don't know if his brother was persecuted or not, but it has to do with it. Matter of fact, this was...
no, that's a reference to the Tokugawa period, because when the Jesuit priests were expelled, any Japanese person who was still following Christianity was persecuted.
He actually gives a little history lesson in the back, couple pages telling you about the period, which he does on occasion. So that's always neat. But matter of fact, Usagi was that's okay. I see what he means here. There was a one of the characters in here is a special needs character. So maybe it was based on his brother. I would guess that's what he's talking about. Yeah, I can see that. But matter of fact, only out of all of those TikTok comic book videos I watched, only one person was looking for recommendations. And he was a young guy, must have been 20. Well, I think he was this was like his second month of collecting comics. So I was like, so of course I told him Usagi Yojimbo.
Right.
Because that's also an easy one to get into. You don't have to know anything to read any issue of Usagi Yojimbo. You're just there.
You could pick it up at any point,
right?
And you get into it so easily, and he does a great job of just letting you know this is what's happening. You're caught up. Let's go.
There's no 3 decades of romantic entanglements as backstory to have to know. I was like, oh. So of course that was an easy recommendation for me, but it's like I'm unless someone asks for recommendations, I was like, I'm not volunteering them because they'll never read them anyway. It's kind of like, if you ask me, I'll tell you. If not, keep buying whatever you.
Yeah, the few things I've been suggesting to like some, because I do have occasionally some people get on. I get into that feed where someone's like, I just stopped. I just started buying comic books, and I have this many books. Now what do I do with them? And it's like I gotta get bags and boards. And so my main suggestion was short boxes.
Only.
Don't get the long boxes, because he was saying, "Oh, I need to get some long boxes." It's like, listen to me. Save your back right now. Get short boxes. Don't get the long boxes. And here's why. And I told him a little story about working in a comic book shop where it's like you learn real quickly. You got to move these boxes a lot, and the long boxes, after a few years, they're not as strong as they used to be. These boxes are heavy. It's like, do you really want to hurt yourself on extra issues of Youngblood? You don't want to do that.
Give you the same advice I got when I was 17. Don't buy long boxes. They'll hurt your back eventually.
Yes.
I always bought short boxes after that guy told me that.
Yep. I learned it working in the comic book shop. Every now and then we just had to keep moving boxes. Like, why are we moving these boxes? And
comic shops all use long boxes.
Yes, but these were the books in the back that nobody looked at. It's like, why are we moving these things around? The comic book shop.
The ones underneath the shelf that everybody looked at. Because there was usually, a lot of comic shops have like custom furniture, if you will, in there. And they have like basically a giant table with the long boxes on top.
Yep.
Often back to like 2 lengths of long boxes. And then underneath in the cabinet, they'll have extra long boxes of stuff. And if you got to go down and get those extra long boxes, whoo.
And it's like, again, it's like certain collecting things, especially back issues. After a while, it's like you don't even want to bend your knees and go through the boxes at the bottom. Those used to be fun, but they're not anymore. It used to be fun just going through random comics. Now I need them to be in alphabetical order. I need some sort of order. I can't just be searching.
And I at least want the comics to be bagged.
Yeah.
They don't have to be bagged and boarded. I understand that. But to me, I sometimes I look over those long boxes that nothing's in bags, and you can just see the finger marks along the top. Because people are flipping through them like that, and the middle of them just gets dented in.
Yep, or they pull it up and then bend it to look at the cover. And then put it back in, and sometimes they just shove it back in, so you don't know what might be bent, what might be torn, and it's like
it's just those finger impressions.
And then the worst is to go, what are the prices of these books? Oh, just bring them up and we'll let you know. It's like, I don't want to anymore. That's it.
No, no, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Because I do not need them pulling out an O Street Guide or back then a Wizard magazine. It's like, well, no, these aren't bagged and boarded. These aren't priced. And you're going to pull out a catalog. I always hated that. If you ever go to a flea market and someone pulls
that. Do you think I have all day for you to price these? I do not. Yeah, I would never buy comics. If that was the way the shop or the whatever was, I'd be like, see ya. Unless it was one comic I wanted to buy, I'd be like, nah.
Yeah.
Do not have time for this.
Exactly. Not at all. It's like just have the price on it. Let me know what the price is. You know. Yeah.
If I was 12 years old, I might go for that.
Yeah.
Because I
It
didn't
was
have
a
that
time
many
that
comics.
they didn't have that many comics. You do the search and discovery was a lot of fun
You had all
at the
day.
time. Yep.
And you had so few comics that you could actually afford the time to reread some of them.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh
That,
It's
matter
like
of fact,
I'm sure it was because you only have so many comics. I would read the whole thing and then read it again. A comic I used to have, I might have read 4 times before it got filed away, and read the whole comic at least 2 or 3 times, and then maybe read the letters pages just so I felt like I got everything out of that book.
that's why, the comics that if you still have them from some of them from when you were 10 years old are just disintegrating.
Oh yeah, completely. It's like in my mind, it's like no, these should still be in mint condition. You take it out, it's like wow, someone read this
Yeah.
1,000 times, and it had to be me. But
Right. No one
in your
else has
mind,
read
it's like
them.
no, these should be in great condition. And
My original Hulk 200 is like the cover's fallen off practically. Which is why years ago I went and bought a mint condition one because I was like, this is how I remember it.
yeah,
Not that,
I don't
which
know
was
what
my
that is. How
actual
that
copy.
happened?
I could go for digital if I had to get it again.
No, I wanted it. I didn't want to read it again. I wanted it as an object. That's that. That's when like I say, collector and reader is a spectrum where on the reader end of the spectrum, you read the comic and then toss it aside. You don't ever care what happens to it. The collector end of the spectrum is you buy the comic, put it in a bag, seal it up, and never look at it. We all lie somewhere on that spectrum. I'm closer to the reader end, but not always. If you're buying a comic book that you will never ever read, that's the collector end. Like that issue of Hulk 200 was just so I could look at it and it looked in mint condition. It was only like $10 at the time, not even an expensive comic. But if I want to read it, I'll still pull out my old battered copy because why not?
Yeah, that's the one to read. The one to read, one to put away.
Right. But it's like that. That's how and there are people out there who never read their comics. That's how you know they're collectors rather than readers. Like I said, we're often a blend of the two things.
Right.
Like once again, these young collectors readers I saw who were buying like one extra cover or something. That was just to collect it. They were never going to read that one. They just liked the cover, wanted to have it, and wanted to collect it. So so they're readers and collectors kind of thing. Like one issue is for reading, one issue is just for collecting.
Or you can have a copy, a reader's copy, and an actual reader's copy because you want to keep the reader's copy pristine. And most of the comics aren't accessible in this. They just tell me what you're interested in.
Oh yeah, it's at a comic shop. Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't go. That doesn't go. That's why you should go for the trade paperbacks.
Yeah.
Jared, how's your new painting going?
It's going well. I'll be posting a new little video up on my Patreon. You could go over there and see that. But hopefully I'm going to finish it tomorrow in only 5 days. The painting I did just before this one took me 9 days, and that was a freaking long time. So I'm like, I'm going to go something simpler. Because I just feel like painting this summer. That's what I'm doing with my summer. I'm doing some painting.
Nice.
So money be damned. So I go broke. It's happened before. It's no fun, but I want to paint.
Starving artist.
But it's going okay. One more day on it. One more day. If those don't know, I've got a Patreon. You can find it on my channel, and there's a free tier where you can just go and I post stuff there. And I've been posting like daily there on my progress, a little video of my progress on the paintings I've been doing.
Oh, cool.
The last two. So that's been fun. Just a little short 1-minute video, taking a look at it at the end of the day. Going, this is what I got done today. Fun stuff. Fun. Occasionally I will, like nowadays, speaking of, they'll look it up for you. Nowadays, if there's some particular comic I want at my LCS, I ain't looking for it. I'm like, hey, check your database. Do you have this comic? I'm not looking for it. Sometimes Roy will be like, yeah, I got it at home. I'll have to bring it in for you. I'm like, okay, bring it in.
So he keeps the comics in storage at home and not
a lot
the store.
of them. He's got a ton of them at the store, and sometimes he brings them home to catalog them. Sometimes he brings them home to get them ready. He doesn't do that many shows, but occasionally he does shows. He's doing show. Sometimes it's just at home, but it's usually during a period when something's going on. I think like he's going to do a show. He's going to catalog them. And I'm like, where is this one? Get it for me. Out back. Let's see, another comic I bought this week. This one I saw only a couple of times on all those videos. Was I Was a Fashion School Serial Killer by who's the team? Doug Warner, Daniel Hilliard, story and art, Michelle Madsen, colors, and Ed Dukeshire, letters. This is like the 4th or 5th volume of stuff I've done with him. I've bought by this particular creative team. I enjoy them. They're fun stories. Seem to be a lot about serial killers and killers in general. This is about this girl here who's in fashion school and also a serial killer.
Well, that makes sense, actually.
100% makes sense. I mean, most serial killers are women, and of course they're all students.
No, it's more like if you go into fashion school, you will become a serial killer.
And she's mostly, so far, she's like killing dudes who prey on her friends at fashion school right now.
Most men who are into fashion are gay. They really are.
I know, but it's not them who are preying on the hot fashion school girls. It's random. I don't know. I think one was delivery guys. One was, I forget. And once she starts getting the urge to kill, she breaks out in a rash and starts scratching. And then she bathes in the blood of her victims, and her rash goes away. It's kind of insane.
Yeah, that does sound insane, and yet in a weird, crazy way. Yeah, that makes sense. She has the rash. She itches. Yeah. She needs the lotion, the blood. It all connects.
And they established in the first issue that it's not FIT.
Oh, really?
They didn't mention FIT by name, but they're like, oh, we're not that other fashion school across town.
Yeah.
But of course, we all know there's only one fashion school anyone can name in New York City, and it's the Fashion Institute of Technology, FIT.
Yep.
So I assume they're just distancing themselves a little.
Right.
But it's funny. I actually want to bring copies of it to FIT because FIT is on my commute to Pratt as I walk down 7th Avenue. I walk past FIT all the time. I'm like, I should bring this into them. Have a little kiosk if I was a fashion school serial killer there. I wonder if any of the creative team is around New York City.
Yeah, it's possible. I know plenty of FIT graduates who are into comics.
Oh yeah.
So they're there, and they have a comic show every once in a while. So
if they're into comics, How come they've never tried to launch a fashion where you wear your underwear on the outside?
Hey, that was
I don't know. There's only like one quote unquote famous comic artist that came from FIT, and that's Billy Tucci from She. She is named after one of his teachers. There are plenty of other people who are working in comics or worked in comics. Some of my interns were from FIT. Smitty, I think, was from FIT, and there was a group of interns that came in after Smitty that were all FIT graduates. That some of them worked and published comics, some of them went off and still working in design, not necessarily in fashion, but I'm sure there's some books out there that we just never saw.
Madonna wore her underwear on the outside in the 80s.
Yes.
She wore her underwear as a top.
Hey, Superman's wearing his underwear outside again, so
that was a big discussion amongst the filmmakers on this latest Superman film. I remember hearing. I just read something they were talking about that.
And I just read a Facebook post that says, "Oh, now you're interested in Superman," which I thought was a funny little jab in general.
Oh, by the way, that reminds me. This team's other stuff was Plush, was the one that just came out, and Vinyl and Plastic. So that's what 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the 5th one from this creative team. Got some pretty gruesome covers on these too. That's the skinned cover. Next to they've got a lot of skinning going on their covers. And bathing in blood. I just saw the covers from next issue there.
Those are all the art students that had to draw those illustrations. I'm putting this in a comic book.
It amazes me how many art students are interested in comics. In that, like I said, I think there's more art students interested in comics than there are like comic fans, than there are people buying comics.
Well, I suppose that for many of them, it's the only chance they'll ever have to create a narrative.
Yeah, could be.
And even if you're doing a painting, the narrative is limited by the amount of space that you have to work with.
And a lot of paintings don't even have narrative of any kind.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I can definitely see it. You get to tell a story.
Yeah.
And that's an attractive thing. Sorry to hear about that Chris hot air balloon accident in France. Hope he heals his feet fast. Thoughts and prayers. I don't know where he's going with that one.
Yeah.
Well, he tried to land the balloon with
By the way,
his feet.
Did you see the finished version on Chris's website of that Fantastic Four cover he did that? He said Jared's going to appreciate this one with Fantastic Four #1.
Oh, he put text on it.
He put text on it, and there's like the Thing going, "Oh no, I think Mr. Fantastic is going to be tied up and out of action," and the Human Torch is going, "If only Mr. Fantastic could help us, but he's all tied up." And the Invisible Girl's saying something like, "Oh, if only Mr. Fantastic weren't tied up, he could really help us." And then Mr. Fantastic saying, "It'll take more than ropes to keep Mr. Fantastic out of action." But he did a really nice job on it.
I think I saw him post it.
He posted the sketch version on our group in Facebook.
Right, that's what I saw.
And then he posted the finished version on Facebook with a link to his website.
Okay, that
where
I have
you could buy it for, I think it was $200. Well worth it. I like
Now,
that.
I don't recall because it's been forever since I've looked at the Fantastic Four cover. Was that the actual text and he didn't change any of it? Or
No,
did he
that's
add
the
to it?
actual Mr. Fantastic text.
Yeah.
Okay.
The actual Mr. Fantastic text is it'll take more than ropes to keep me out of action. And he said I'd get it because that was always one of my queries was who tied him up?
Uh-huh.
On the
and
cover
why
of
was the
Fantastic Four #1, how did he get tied up?
who tied him up and left him near the hole where the monster is going to come out of?
It was the most absurd thing.
And why when the other members of the Fantastic Four got there, why didn't they untie Mr. Fantastic first?
Good question.
All good and valid questions.
But that I remember I probably posed that question to Chris like sometime in the 90s. That's why he knew I'd like the joke. And I'm not the first one to pose that. Other people have said that too. I've heard over the years. So.
Oh, okay.
Who tied up Mr. Fantastic on the cover of Fantastic Four #1?
Who shut the?
Had to be the
JR?
Mole Man.
It'll
only
take
one
more
that-
than ropes to keep Mr. Fantastic out of action. Well, it's also one of my favorite pieces of cover copy ever, just because of the absurdity of it.
Right.
And it was clearly there just to show off that he could stretch.
Right.
You know, that was the reason it was there, technically. But it still made no sense story-wise.
Yeah. I say it was the Mole Man, and if it wasn't, it was one of those cops that are in the street in the background.
I assume the Mole Man was underground somewhere.
He showed up with rope.
He knew he had to put Mr. Fantastic Four out of action before
That's right.
the monsters.
I'm reminded of the voice that they do with Mole Man on the Geeky Puppet Show, the YouTube channel where their comics are read in a humorous manner, and there's a lot of ad-libbing. So they develop traits for the characters. So whenever they're reading the Fantastic Four, and the mole, even if the Mole Man does not show up, Pixel will say something like, "I, the Mole Man, approve of this comic."
The Mole Man just reminded me. I was just reading once again one of those old back issue articles, and it was about the beginning of X Factor and how Apocalypse originally wasn't supposed to be Apocalypse.
Nope.
He was supposed to be the Owl.
Yep.
Really?
And who was the writer of the original X Factor issues?
Bob
Layton. Bob Layton. And Jackson Geis was drawing them.
Yeah.
So what was happening was that in the plot they had a couple of villains who indicated that there was, a mysterious boss behind them. And then in issue 5, they gave us a silhouette of the mysterious boss. And Bob Layton was planning on making that boss the Owl, except he was going to be, a darker, more formidable owl than the silly Daredevil villain of an old man who could fly. But then Bob Layton left the series for whatever reason, and Louise Simonson took it over. And I think Walter was helping her out, they said, too, at this point on. And they decided she didn't want to use the owl. And they said Bob Harris also asked for a more formidable villain than the owl. So Jackson Geis, I think Walter designed Apocalypse. But in that last issue, where they had just the silhouette of what turned into Apocalypse, he originally had the owl there. So he had to patch in Apocalypse, except he hadn't seen Apocalypse yet. Which is why the silhouette doesn't match actual Apocalypse.
Right.
So then by the time issue 6 rolled around, he must have seen, the Walter Simonson design on Apocalypse. So that's when he showed up.
I was not aware of that at all.
Yeah, first time I read it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, the owl is a mutant, which is, I suppose, why Layton didn't wanted to use him.
Yeah, you want to use him.
But yeah, okay, so the villains in issue number 2 are called the Alliance of Evil.
Okay.
Which I suppose is something that the owl at the time would have done.
You can see the owl running that.
Yeah, I can see that. But it blows my mind it's the owl, because trying to think back at that time period, I don't think the owl was being used anywhere. So it would have been wild to just bring him in.
There was a fill-in issue in the Sandy's Daredevil run. I can't remember who wrote it, but Steve Ditko drew it. I think with Al Williamson inks. And it wasn't really part of the main story then. It was a filler that could have been used anywhere. And the owl was the villain in that one. But
in the early days of the Marvel Universe, flying was a real superpower.
Right.
By the time the 80s rolled around, everybody could fly. Flying was a power that was just one of your powers that they gave you in the set because it looked cool. Mm-hmm. And they wanted you to be able to get from place to place easily. So it's like everybody could fly. So, by the time that rolled, which is exactly why they had to change the Angel too into Archangel, because he was useless. All he could do was fly.
Yeah, he was one that needed an upgrade.
Yeah, because by that point, everybody could fly and had super strength, invulnerability, laser beams. So it was like, he could just fly around and do nothing. They didn't even give him a stick to hit anyone with. It would have been simpler.
That's very true. Back then you think about, what can Angel do? He was always in the danger room doing all of those moves. I don't think he did any of those moves in the comics themselves.
Nope.
He's just, the funny thing with Angel, he's just a very good visual. He just looks really cool with the wings, stuff like that. But other than that, he wasn't all that exciting. He just visually looked cool in some cases.
Which is why I loved who is it? Those issues that Alan Moore wrote on Swamp Thing that took place on Ron, with the Thangarians too. Did you ever read those?
I did not.
They are really, really cool because the Thanagarians, of course, are Hawkman's people.
Right.
And at least they always gave Hawkman weapons to hit you with. So
he'd
fly over and hit you with a giant mace.
Made out of that nth metal, I think they called it.
Right. But part of sort of the plot line of these is that these Thanagarians are warriors. So they have fighting styles that go with their flying. And Adam Strange doesn't. I still remember the line was so Adam Strange could fly with a little jetpack there. But
right, the Iranians have jetpacks. That's kind of so they don't have a police in Iran, but they're sort of a military police. And that's the standard issue, part of the standard issue uniform. Especially after that, there was a Prestige format miniseries in 1990 with art by the Kuberts, and there are more guys dressed like Adam Strange on Ron. Yeah. The thing is, since Ron and Thanagar have always been portrayed as rivals, you're going to have some fights between Adam Strange and the Hawkman's people.
On this one,
it's Flash Gordon versus the Bird people.
Yeah. So on this particular issue, like, of course, since it's Alan Moore, made it serious. And like I said, the Hawkmen were just kicking Adam Strange's ass. And one of them even said something like, you don't even know the basic 7 arts of aerial combat or something like that. Just mocking Adam Strange. But eventually, through trickery and treachery, Adam Strange won the fight. And he's like, and I think his closing line was something like, I may not know the 8 arts of aerial combat, but I sure am a son of a bitch.
That's a great line.
Yeah. But I remember that was the first time I was like, yeah, why wouldn't these Thanagarians have some sort of, because you never see any sort of fighting style from like flying superheroes. They just fly around and shoot blasts at you.
Yeah.
Goblin wants a reed rip slab.
We could always do one of those.
We'll get there. I've been waiting for my jetpack for 60 years. Yes, we all have.
Want to do a reed rip and slab?
Let's go. You pick, Wilson.
All right, let's dive into the 70s.
The 70s. Let's see what we got here. Get out of there. Get out of there. 19.
We were talking about the 10th anniversary.
You know what? Let's go 1978.
All right.
September. Come on, where'd you go? Failed to open.
Oops.
There we go. Google wants me to enter a password too, but don't need to do that now. Let's see. Present. Share screen. Window. There we go. I will share that. We have got Warlord number 16, Mike Grell. Conan 93, John Buscema and Ernie Chan, and Devil Dinosaur number 9, Jack Kirby and John Byrne cover. This is sort of our barbarian trio here.
Oh,
Still only 35 cents. That's how you knew the price was about to go up.
Well, Warlord's already 40 cents.
Already 40, yeah.
Yeah. DC was ahead. Now 40 cents, it said. They're even celebrating it. Woohoo! You thought you would only give away 30, 35, but now it's 40. That's how good it is.
So hard to choose because I never read any of them.
I read the Conan and the Devil Dinosaur. I don't think I read Warlord that early on.
I think I have that. Warlord is in the Showcase Presents. There was one.
The big question is it a Vince Colletta inked issue of Warlord? That I don't know.
I would read Conan. That's for sure. I would slab Devil Dinosaur just because that looks so good. That unfortunately means I'll be ripping Warlord right through diagonally, so the sword is separated from the from
the Warlord.
Yeah,
that's
right
a
down.
Weird cover too. What is it?
It
On the cover of Warlord, in the crystal ball, we see some bad guy holding up a baby.
That might be the Warlord's kid, because I think he was like Aquaman. It was always his kid in danger. If I remember correctly.
He's just gonna smash that crystal ball with his sword. That's a waste of a good crystal ball.
Yeah, it's like you're smashing your TV because you don't like what's on.
That is a Vince Colletta issue.
That makes it less attractive to read.
And I would replace Conan's girlfriend with the dolphin. I forget her name, but I believe that's the
Belit or Belit. I don't know I never knew how I was supposed to pronounce that.
Belit.
So I would replace her with the dolphin, and I would put the flamingos hanging out with Devil Dinosaur because, there's going to be meteors eventually in that book.
I'm going to read Warlord. I'm going to see what all the hubbub is about. Okay, so they sold your son again. I'm going to rip Devil Dinosaur because, sorry, but Devil Dinosaur is the weakest of Jack Kirby's 70s titles. And I'm going to slap Conan because it's not very spectacular cover, but
you know what?
You can put it on a wall.
I'm looking at this Conan cover, and it took me so long to notice that gray guy in the front. Right next to the cover copy.
That's supposed to be Zuleb.
And then it took me even longer to notice that there's a guy sneaking up behind him through the doorway.
Warlord, rip Conan, slap Kirby.
Dolphin the baby on the Warlord cover.
Yes, that's a lot. This is a pretty good set of covers because you can dolphin pretty much anything.
Oh, there's tons of things to
dolphin. There are tons of things to dolphin.
I'm going to dolphin that floating head in Devil Dinosaur. I think we need a floating
for the end of the year.
That's okay.
I hated the brown orange color combo from that hair. So I'm ripping the ugly Conan background.
It's September. That's a lovely Halloween themed colors.
So I haven't decided what I'm going to dolphin. I can dolphin the baby. I can dolphin Deimos. I can dolphin Warlord's sword. I can dolphin Conan's sword. I can dolphin Billet. I can dolphin Zuleb.
Dolphin that guy with the knife sneaking up on Conan, huh?
I can, I can even dolphin the witch on Devil Dinosaur's cover.
That's what I'm dolphining. The witch.
Yeah, I'm going to dolphin that. Yeah,
I want a nice dolphin head sticking out there. Mm-hmm. Though I would like to see a dolphin sneaking with a knife sneaking up on Conan. That would be cool.
I'm going to put the flamingos on the sneaking up guy. Is going to be on the guy's hat. They're both going to be, which is going to make it really hard for the guy to sneak up on Conan with two flamingos perched on top of his head.
I'm going to put the flamingos on the same cover, but over by that stone statue foot. I think they're going to be off to the side, just checking out the action. Hyrule wins. And let's see, I didn't even read and rip and slab anything yet. I'm going to read Conan. I'm going to read Conan, slab Warlord, because I like that cover, which means I have to rip Devil Dinosaur. But that's okay. That's not the best Jack Kirby cover ever.
But it's not the worst.
No. Still a good cover.
Yeah.
But he is balancing cover copy on his head, so I can rip that one. Devil Dinosaur clearly has a tangent that shouldn't be there with that cover copy. Couldn't just make it a little smaller. Editorial. But all three of these are nice covers, I think.
Yeah, I think if I found these, I would want to read them all. Because with Conan, you can pick it up at no matter where the story is. Because you're going to get an enjoyable story, especially if it's John Buscema on it.
That is right about when I started buying Conan regularly. Probably a few issues before, maybe 90 or 91. Because I had picked it up here and there. Because that's part of my memory of comics. Is kind of like maybe the first issue I read and the first issue I started picking it up regularly. Sometimes those were months apart. Sometimes those were a year apart. It all depended on, because I think if memory serves, the first issue of Conan I ever read was number 78. But I didn't pick it up until like issue 90. So it was like a full year before I started buying it regularly because, didn't always have the money. And Tit Goblin is not nice seeing newsstand barcodes. Get rid of those barcodes. I like the era before those stupid barcodes cluttering up our covers.
Wilson, when you were a kid, did you know comic book shop stores in NYC, or did you get the newsstands? So when I started buying comics in New Rochelle in '83, I was getting them in newsstands. When we moved back into the Bronx, um, again, newsstands and local stores. The first comic book shop was this hole in the wall in the Bronx called CNC Comics, which was literally somebody's living room. So it was like in some apartments in the Bronx, you would have the big buildings would have the apartments inside, but occasionally there would be an outside apartment. Usually, it might be the super's apartment or something like that. And so this one guy had he set it up that you walk down one step and you're basically in his living room, but he had a counter with comics in them and on it, and then he had a few posters behind him. And that was the first place that I learned that you could buy bags and bags. They didn't know about boards yet. So that was like the first comic shop. That wasn't really a shop. It was like I said, somebody's living room. And then when I went to high school, the first true comic book shop I went to was Forbidden Planet, but it was the one that was on 57th Street. So they had a location there. So that was the first true comic book shop. And then after that, eventually visiting the big one in the Village. And then as the years went by, I was living in New York. I did discover other comic book shops like St. Mark's Comics when they had it was always in the same location, but the older one, you had to go up the stairs. And it would be, again, it used to be in an apartment building. So the left side was the comic book stuff, and the right side was like books and record type stuff. And then they eventually moved downstairs to the St. Mark's that you would see in pictures nowadays. Um, so that was like another main one to go to in Manhattan. And then eventually you discovered like Cosmic Comics on 23rd Street, Jim Haley's comics. So through the 80s to the 90s, there would be shops popping up and closing all the time. But in the 90s, there were shops popping up all over the place.
Oh yeah.
The Hanley's was on like one side of the mall. Then there was a comic book shop in the mall. And then on the other side was a card shop, baseball card stuff, but they also sold comics as well. Two something cards. So there was like, and the mall I was talking about was the Manhattan Mall. So there was like three places within across the street from each other that there were comic book shops. In the Village, there was a place called Rogers Comics. That was on a second floor. That was the only place I was able to find foreign comic books. So he was getting books that were from Spain. So that's how I got a couple of Spanish Spider-Man books. They were reprints, but it was kind of neat that they had something a little different. And there was at least two other shops in the Village right around the corner from each other. That there was one store you would go to because for some reason they got their books 3 days earlier than any other comic book shop in New York City. And no one knew what in that they had, but they were getting books a little early, and people were getting upset about that. And this is when books were being shipped on a Thursday. So so there were quite a few, and every now and then you would just be walking down Manhattan and you walk by a comic book shop, and then the next week it wouldn't be there. So it would be one of those things that they would pop up all over the place.
Yeah, people who either grew up in Manhattan or had access to Manhattan had a lot more options than us suburban kids did.
Did my area of the comic shop? No. The first comic shop opened in '84 to sell French comics. The second one opened in '88 to sell American comics. By '96, we had 5 stores in the country. We never had more than 8, and that's 12 if you count the newsstands which were specialized in foreign magazines, and at least two of them had diamond accounts. If there were a few others off of that circuit where I could buy newsstand editions. Turns out that the newsstand editions were about 50% more expensive than the direct market edition sold in comic shops, even though they were more expensive than they were in America, about 20% more, 20-25%, depending on how much the exchange rate changed. But no, see, this is a niche.
Yeah.
So it was never going to have a boom.
Well, man, during the boom in the 90s, like right now in my small New York County, Rockland County, I think we have 2 comic shops. We've got Toy Wiz, and we've got the one I go to, Comics Warehouse, I think is its actual name. It's like, I don't even know. I've been going there for so long. And as far as I know, for like the last 20 years, those are the 2 comic shops. And I haven't even been to Toy Wiz in 15 years. But in the early 90s, we probably had 10 comic shop card shops. And it was just crazy, the boom. But of course, they all went away.
Yeah. So in the Bronx, during the boom, there was at least 4 comic book shops that I recall. One of them is actually still around, or at least it was still around since about 6 months ago. I haven't checked, but there's a place called Fordham Comics on Fordham Road. It's been there since the 80s, and it was one of those shops that, again, in a refurbished building that was once an apartment building, but now had like the second floor was a nail salon, and then the third floor where the comic book shop was in. It used to be one side was a comic book shop, and another side was uh, a karate instructor type of thing. But every few years, that karate thing would be owned by a different owner, and it would be a different store or whatever. Eventually, the comic book shop ended up taking up that space. But now it's like it's one of those comic book shops where it's just he gets the books in, he opens it right there, and just leaves them in the boxes. So you kind of walk in, and it's like there are just tables everywhere because eventually they were playing Magic the Gathering, stuff like that. So I think now it's just like he's retired. He just has these comics that comes in. He opens up the books, and then he doesn't go any further than that. So you walk in, it's like if you walk in knowing what you want, he'll tell you what box is in, but that's pretty much it. But in the heyday, that was a fun comic book shop. He had some sort of in with the comic industry because he always had Xerox copies of covers of up and coming stuff. So he had all the covers for the Marvel versus DC stuff, the George Perez artwork of what's coming out, and of course those never came out. But he had Xerox copies of all the covers. They weren't even inked yet, and it was a cool shop back in the 80s. During the 90s, going to school in Westchester, there was at least 4 shops that I knew like on my route to go home. So depending on which buses I took, I either get the 2 that was in Dobbs Ferry, one was an actual comic book shop, and another one was a bookstore that sold back issues of comics. And then that place had at least 2 bookstores because there was another bookstore that sold more like hardcover books, and once in a while they'll have a comic book related type book, but it would be like one of those Marvels through the 60s, 70s, and 80s type of book. They would get that in once in a while. And then you had the Dragon's Den, which was like at that time the biggest bookshop in Westchester, and across the street from that was 2 If by Cards, 2 If by Comics, and they were a card shop that only sold comics because they were across the street. from the comic book shop. So it was like they were just like, oh, people are coming in to get our cards. Here, you don't have to go anywhere. You could get some comics too.
One last comic to show is Don't Run with Scissors, which is the Stefano Cardacelli drawn comic. And I think this was Kickstartered in the past. And it's one of the more expensive ones at $6 for, I think this is only a 20-page comic, but I'm a big fan of Stefano Cardacelli's artwork. And this is a story about weird happenings in a small town and these demons with scissors coming out of their heads. So I guess you'd call it a horror comic. Where are the demons with scissors in their heads? Oh, there they kind of are. And like I said, I enjoyed this thoroughly. Who's writing it? It's written by, I think someone who wrote stuff with him. It's written by Francesca Perillo, art by Stefano Cardacelli, colors and lettering by Lorenzo Scaramella. Keen Spot. It looks like it's short run printed too, because I can see a few things wrong with the production that make me think it's not an offset press, but it still looks good. So what the heck? Don't run with. I think there's at least another issue, and what's funny is there's only 2 covers, but it's got space for at least 2 more. Collect them all. Collect them both, you mean? Like I think I read somewhere that this was kickstarted, and it makes sense because he's been having new stuff come out with Mad Cave recently.
That's a whole other level, almost retired shop owner. Nice shop you have here. What do you sell? Things in boxes I don't take out of the boxes.
Yup. My comic shop might close. I'm not sure. He's got to sign the lease again sometime soon. I'll have to talk him into doing that.
I haven't been to one of the comic shops in like 6 or 7 years. I don't know what's going on with them, but they never change much.
Yeah.
The comics are still the new comics and the trade paperbacks are still all in the same place that they were when I started buying there in 1999.
Mm-hmm. And like Toy Wiz, the shop that's near me, is the one that used to be Wizard Magazine's comic shop. And
Spider's Web or something like that?
No, it was named Wizard of Comics.
It was? Okay.
And then they moved a couple times over the years, and now they're Toy Wiz. And they've got, the Toy Wiz website where they sell a ton of toys out of. And last I knew, they did a lot of like Magic the Gathering stuff too. And the comics was only like a small part of their business. Matter of fact, I remember hearing like 20 years ago when they moved into this building, they had to move into that building because of the place the trucks could back up to it, the loading dock. There we go. Because they were moving so many toys in and out of there that they needed a loading dock. Because have you ever used the Toy Wiz website?
No, I never checked them out.
Yeah, because I know it's a pretty big toy website in the toy biz. So, and like I said, they were related to Wizard magazine. Matter of fact, I think Toy Wiz magazine was one of the ones they put out. Mm-hmm.
I'll check them out and see what they have.
Lots of expensive stuff and exclusives and things.
Yeah, the other shop, they're about 50% pops now.
Yeah, oh yeah.
They're 50% pops, 30% manga, 20% other comics.
That reminds me, once again, the videos I was watching. I told you that one woman was returning the comics she didn't wanted to Second and Charles to get credit for them. She also had a couple of pops too, still in the box. And she's like, "Yeah, I'm not into these characters anymore, so I'm going to trade in the pops too." So I guess you can trade in pops at Second and Charles. And it was funny. The one thing they didn't want was this like random JLA offshoot trade paperback.
Huh.
Now I don't know why that. She was like, "I would have just given it to him." It's like, I don't want it. Like, I would have just said, "Here, take this." But she's like, "I'll find a place to donate it to." But it's like, I wonder why they wouldn't take that one random JLA trade paperback. Like, it's not even JLA, whatever the spin-off of JLA. JLA is something else.
Extreme Justice? Justice League no, there was no trade paperback of Extreme Justice or Justice League Task Force.
Huh.
Justice League International?
Maybe a JLA Classified. The JLA Classifieds were not very relevant, although there were some good stories in there. But it's not anything that anyone in particular is looking for. Maybe a JLA completist. But
it
still.
could also be one of those things that were just given away. That could be specialty for
Justice League of Armenia.
Yeah.
And one completely random thing I got this week is a Chun-Li Magic the Gathering proxy card. This is not an official Magic the Gathering card, but you can use a proxy card in Magic the Gathering when the card is so rare that you don't have it, but you want to use that card. And usually you put the proxy off to the side and put like a random Magic card written in there with proxy on it. And this was just one some guy made. And he's like, I followed all the and Hasbro has rules. They don't want you selling proxy cards on eBay.
Right.
That look anything like their card. So I guess they have, because in the description, he's like, I followed all the rules of Magic proxy cards. I followed all the rules. Don't take my auction down. But I just kind of wanted to see what one looked like and see the quality. And I'm not sure. And he's like, it's the same thickness as a Magic card. I'm not sure what he printed it on, but the printing is pretty good. It's got some good snap to it. I mean, it feels like an actual card. So I'm like, I don't know where he had this printed, but it says Goddess Winter did the art. So there's even a credit for and then it's like I think this is what the real card does down here. That's the actual, because it uses the Magic copyrighted little symbols. But I just kind of cost $5. I just wanted to see what one looked like. Because I used to make custom Magic cards and sell them on eBay a few years ago.
Hasbro go after you?
What was that?
Did Hasbro go after you?
Oh, they did once or twice, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Because I was just making the same stuff everyone else was. It's like, let's put this up. They're like, no. Matter of fact, eBay even banned me for a little while once.
Oh, really?
Magic. But they can't.
Selling
proxies, but they can't they can't ban you for selling modified actual cards.
Oh, okay.
That was another thing I was doing. If it's the actual card, you can modify it all you want. But if you're printing it yourself, no.
I remember the Metro card. People were taking Metro cards and painting on them. And the MTA tried to go after these people. It's like, you're selling these cards as a collectible. It's like, no, I'm selling the artwork. I just happen to be painting them on these cards. But it's like, they wanted money for that too. It was like, it was wild.
Give us our cut.
I am not responsible for what you do with the cards after I sell them to you.
Yep. But it was like, oh no, you're using the MTA's logo. It's like it's on the card.
You should just stick them on a bicycle's wheel.
It's like, and then eventually it was like, oh yeah, we don't, you don't throw the cards on the floor anymore. Here are these boxes you can put the cards into. But those didn't exist before. Before the card ended, people just tossed them onto the ground.
And now Metro cards are almost extinct.
Yep, going over to the Omni card that
it's on your
people
phone.
are complaining that it's not working. I've been using it; it's been fine. I don't like how easy it is. It's just way too easy. You just, right over their little iPad that they have. You put it over, click, ding, you're done. It's like that's too quick. At least with the Metro card, you can slide it, and depending on your wrist action, maybe it didn't register. You got to do it again. It just being so easy bothered me, and I don't know if it's just an old man thing or just MTA rider for years. It shouldn't be this easy.
Should not. But it is. I guess next week we'll be back on my channel for a week.
Yeah. I still haven't tested the restream.
I still haven't tested YouTube's own streaming feature, though it crashed on Howler Mouse yesterday. I was watching a bit of his show. He was doing a live show, and I think he tried YouTube, and it crashed on him.
Well, you can use YouTube streaming feature if it's just you. If you're not playing on
That's what
having
he was doing.
any. Yeah.
That's what he was doing, and he said it crashed on him, so he started a new stream with StreamYard.
All right. Well, in that case, we're
time for the balloons.
Time for the balloons.
And confetti.
Woohoo! And lasers. We have now had lasers. We are now ready to go. Thank you all for coming and for all of the. We had some very good interaction with the audience today.
Oh yeah!
So thank you all for contributing to the show. As Jared said, we'll go to his channel next week, and now we will sign off. See ya.